He said His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa for the erstwhile government handled the economy to such a stage where it's like a crime scene.
Absolutely.
The criminal handling of the economy.
Yes.
And I'm saying that for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama,
Yes.
SONA is clear to him. He
Yes.
knows what it is.
Yes.
The economy is.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm also telling him that in this past 2 months that he became president, these are some of the things that have happened.
Yes.
That is also our SONA.
Okay.
So whilst he comes in to tell us Akufo-Addo SONA, he should also be mindful of what has happened within the first 2 months. I'm not saying he's a magician, but I'm sure he's not a magician, but he's been able to sack people. He's not a magician. He's not a magician. But people are going home. He's not a magician. I'm not saying he's a magician. He's not a magician, but the cases in court, people have been set free. He's not a magician.
Collins,
He's not a magician.
How difficult is it?
I'm saying that he's not a magician.
You know,
but
Collins,
I also have the right
Yes.
to tell you what has happened in these
Yes.
2 months.
Yes.
He's not a magician, but
Yes.
petrol prices have gone up 3 times. He's not a magician. I've not said he's a magician. He's not a magician.
Okay.
And these are not populist statements. These are realities. But of course, I agree that we had issues in the last government. And that is why the people of Ghana decided to change. We are hoping that his reset agenda, as he discussed this morning, will continue. But I also have the right to tell you what my reality is as of today.
Okay.
I think it's important also to try and understand the context within which you raise the non-prosecution or the discontinuation of the prosecution of certain persons, the context within which you raise it. I'm very familiar with the prosecution of Dr. Opuni. I followed it very closely. And I've come to the conclusion that it amounted to malicious prosecution. Why do I say so? He and another person were in court because they allegedly brought in fertilizers which were no good. That was the basis, of the charge against them and their prosecution. You, as well as me, all of us, who followed the prosecution, had farmer after farmer come to the court to give evidence that when they applied that particular fertilizer, their yields improved. I recall one farmer who came and said that year, his cocoa trees flowered in a way that he had never seen before in open court. I've seen scientists come to the court to make the point that the methods which were used to test the fertilizer, leading to the erroneous impression that those fertilizers were not effective, were wrong, and so on. How do you continue such a prosecution without looking malicious? How do you continue such a prosecution? A prosecution which has no legs to stand on at all. I think we should be reminded by the fact that in Ghana, somehow, our Attorney General is also the Minister for Justice. He has a dual role, dual conflicting role sometimes. So the Attorney General and Minister for Justice also has a responsibility to ensure that the people of Ghana enjoy full rights, that they are treated justly and so on. That's a responsibility of the Attorney General, and we should never forget that. Then there's the case of the prosecution of Japa, Atufosin, and others, which eventually ended up in the Supreme Court. My brother, I'm not a lawyer. And I know that you're a finance person, But even as lay people, given the tape which was played in open court, would you advise that that prosecution should continue? A tape on which the Attorney General is actually advising an accused person to falsify evidence. It's not an accused person to go and get a fake medical report and so on. It's on the tape. Has not been denied. You understand? So the discontinuation of these prosecutions, in all cases, has merit. I believe very strongly that it has merit. You understand? And I believe also that we should not carry on prosecutions for prosecution's sake, because prosecutions come with a cost to the state. It's not cheap to prosecute people. It comes with a cost. And when we know that the prosecution of individuals or a group of individuals and so on, is not taking us anywhere, why do we continue to incur cost to the state? It doesn't make any sense, to me at all. Now, the point I make about the commissioning of hospitals, I agree with you. You're right. That the hospital that Eurojet issued a statement on, that hospital had not been completed before it was commissioned, is not one of the Agenda 111 hospitals. You're right to that extent. But then to the extent that it gives us an indication that commissioning of hospitals does not mean that they are completed, it becomes valid. What Eurojet did was to put us on notice that government officials and even sometimes presidents can commission projects which have not been completed. And that is why I cited the case of Eurojet. I didn't cite the case of Eurojet because the hospital it was constructing was an Agenda 111 project. But just to give us an indication that commissioning hospitals is not an indication that the hospitals have been completed. Basic. That's all. You understand? Yes.
Okay. Now, I'll come back to you. Don't worry. I'll come back to you. Just briefly. I'll come back to you. Okay.
Just to give an account of what has occurred within these 2 months. As for the merit or demerit of the discontinuation of the case, I don't think we've gone into that.
Right.
All I sought to do was to also indicate to you that this is what has happened within the first 2 months of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And for the ordinary Ghanaian who has been sacked, whose radio station has been closed, and all that, these are the realities to the person. I'm just hoping that His Excellency will also get the opportunity to speak to his first 2 months in office.
Okay.
As for Kotoka and
Now, before you get to Kotoka, boss, before you get to Kotoka, yes, it is true, you're right, that there are some indications of what is likely to happen, or what is going to happen. And I have no difficulty at all speaking to those indications and their full-blown implications for the national economy. One of those indicators we have had is this threat to privatize the electricity company of Ghana.
Yes.
I have no difficulty if the opposition will raise issues with this and show a better alternative of dealing with the problem. Because I'm most uncomfortable with that indicator. And I'm not the only person. Organized labor has also raised its voice. The Public Utility Workers Union, the Trades Union Congress, and so
are
on.
all kicking against it. Yes.
All kicking against it. And I think that they are on sound grounds. Just look, between 1966 and now, we have privatized more than 600 state enterprises. Out of these 600 state enterprises that we have privatized, only 2 have survived, which is the clearest indication that even in private hands, enterprises do collapse. Okay. Now, if you look at the 2 enterprises which have survived out of 600, they're talking about Moving Pink Ambassador and Lancaster Hotel. These are the 2 which have survived. So there's evidence to make us worry about privatization. But if you take the ECG itself, this is not the first time we are going to privatize ECG. I remember, I think around 1989 or thereabout, we brought in the Electricity Company of France. It took over aspects of ECG's work. We privatized it. After 2 years, the results were so disastrous that we had to kick out the Electricity Company of France. Then there was the case of the privatization of the Ghana Water Company.
Aqua
Vitams ran. And it was a total disaster. So the history of privatization in Ghana does not suggest that it brings efficiency or even brings in resources that are needed for the survival of those enterprises. And I like to recall also that between 1982 and 1983, as a result of the reckless privatization of state enterprises, 300,000 workers lost their jobs. You understand? So if you want to raise these issues about declared intentions and so on, it makes a lot of sense. And we are likely to garner support and so on. But the issues you are raising, my brother, I'm afraid, lack substance. I'm afraid. They absolutely lack substance.
We've not gone into the substance of the issues, I'm just telling you what has happened in these 2 months. We can have a time to debate the substance. I'm just giving you an indication of what has gone on within 2 months.
And then even
that
this,
is so
even this